My wife, 30F, told me, 31M, that married couples don't do that. Is it true? My wife and I have been together for 9 years. When we met, we were all over each other. This story probably sounds pretty typical, but fast forward, and that just isn't the case anymore. I love my wife. She is an extremely hardworking person and has made a lot of sacrifices. It is no small journey that we've been on. I'd also like to note that, aside from this, we have very few problems in our marriage. I honestly feel like at this point, my wife is bored of looking at me. The only real difference in my physical appearance in the last 9 years is that my hair is thinner, and I mostly opt to shave my head instead of hanging on to the little that I have. That being said, while I'm not an Adonis, I don't think I'm hideous either. Before I cut to the chase, I think we can agree that the vast majority of humans every now and then get horny. Sometimes it just happens, and it isn't necessarily because someone else did something. You just, every now and then, get the urge. I shouldn't state it as fact because it's more my view than something absolute. But I'm of the opinion that now my wife only wants sex when these urges hit. She's way past the point where she looks at me and feels some sort of desire for me as a man, as her husband. I'm just that guy who's there when the urge hits. We don't ever talk about sex, talk sexy to each other, send each other the occasional text, "Hey, I was thinking about insert hot thing we did here." Nothing. She will just come into the bedroom, lock the door, and look at me with that look. Hey. Meanwhile, I'm almost confused because there's been no mention of the human touch for a week since our last encounter. Usually the space in the middle is peppered with rejected advances. I'm now, because she locked the door and gave me a look, supposed to be like, "Wow, sex? For me? UP Periscope." So I did what I felt was the reasonable thing to do, and I communicated. I said that I understand our lives are much busier than we were 21 or 22. But it would be nice if we could build the tension a little every now and then. Maybe then I would actually feel desired. This conversation led to a small argument in which we didn't speak for the rest of the day as I worked a night shift and she went to sleep. The next day, she tells me that she did some research and found out that married couples don't do that. And if that's what I want a girlfriend, not the relationship that we have. She also then stated that married couples have sex 3 times a week, and that I should be grateful. We most certainly do not have sex 3 times a week, but that's almost beside the point to me. I was just a little taken aback by her response. I admit I don't have much of a frame of reference as my home life as a child was somewhat broken, and even if it weren't, it's not like couples talk about intimacy with their kids. As such, due to my lacking a frame of reference, this is a sincere question. Am I just being idealistic? Do married couples just eventually get into the rhythm of things so much that you actually don't do that anymore? Does the spark just fizzle out? Does intimacy get stale for one or both of you? Is it a given that you will eventually get bored of who you are with? TLDR. Wife told me that married couples don't build the tension anymore. Edit. A few people seem really hung up on the fact I mentioned sacrifices. Having a child is a sacrifice. And physically, it always takes a larger toll on a woman than a man. I'm merely giving her the credit for that, amongst some other things. She did not lose out on some big educational or career opportunity because of our relationship. Hate to ruin your gotcha moment. I've also made sacrifices. I moved to her home country for some time and became fluent in her language. But I'm not here to toot my own horn. Those who are suggesting counseling might just be right. I appreciate those taking the time to contribute constructively.
I think the straightforward thing to ask is, well, what research? Where did she look? What is it she is basing this on? Because honestly, nothing she said makes much sense. Spicing up your marriage is a very well-known idea and a common practice by lots of couples. The idea that once married, you drop any activity that builds sexual tension is, well, it's kind of just silly to even humor. Further, be grateful. Why aren't you calling out the contradiction? She's not even achieving her own standards, the standards she is using as a pivot to dismiss your request, to maybe trying flirting instead of locking a door. To me, this is a good example of how bad communication can get. She said so many odd things in a row, and all of them to dismiss your feelings, even if they don't make sense. I get you don't want to risk setting her off, but at this rate, nothing will get anywhere.
People will seek out research that confirms their own opinion. Don't get too hung up on it. You can find talking heads that will tell you that couples need sex every day to be happy also. I suggest couples counseling.
Been with my wife for 19 years now. Intimacy and feeling desired by each other is important and necessary part of a relationship. Not sure where she did her research, but it BS. Also stating that you should be grateful is demeaning.
Agreed. Also adding, my husband came to me in a very similar way and expressed that he wanted to be seduced. Seeing boobies isn't enough now that he's not a constantly horny teenage boy. I welcome that information. Because what married couples do in my world is listen to and care about the other's needs, and having a husband who wanted intimacy over getting his dick wet was actually a good thing.